is Wiley, Texas? I knew y'all were just dying to know. We are a community that, well, our school district actually spans over several counties and cities. We are actually located just right outside of DFW, which is Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2000, we had a whopping 15,000 people in town, and 4 years later, we had grown about 10,000 people, and we are, well, yeah, we grew 109%, but now we're about 50,000 people. That's just in the city of Wiley. Wiley ISD actually, like I said, extends beyond that. There's Wiley, just what you need to know in context of the rest of the world. See, I joined Wiley ISD in 1997. We had 5 schools, 3 elementaries, a junior high, and a high school. Starting in 1999, we built a school every year through 2012. And in 2007, we actually built 3 schools at one time and opened them, one of them being a high school. So that trend mirrors our student population. What makes this whole situation easy, especially in light of all the hurricanes that we've had lately, so this may not be as sexy as that, but when you're talking about a town that is roughly 15,000 homes, we have a little story to tell you about how we maintained our energy management program through a horrible, horrible crisis. We woke up March 23rd, about midnight, hail. Okay, everybody gets hail once in a while. But our initial findings was all but 2 of our campuses had sustained significant damages to the roofs and HVAC systems. So I had the fun job of walking all these buildings with our insurance adjuster just to ascertain what the damage was, how much it was going to cost, and when are we going to start this work. That was March 23rd. April 9th, the insurance adjusters are done making their assessments. They're ready to hand in their report, and my boss resigns. I've only been on the job 15 months. No, actually 9 months. So I was like, okay. Well, he walks out April 9th, Monday morning. April 11th, school goes on, and all of a sudden, Mother Nature shows up again. This is the storm cloud from the University of North Texas, which is about 60 miles north of Wiley. I did a little research because I'm a weather nerd, and this cloud, excuse me, was called a severe upstream, severe downstream hailstorm. What that means is when you have a strong updraft of moisture, it holds that moisture up in the cloud. When you have a strong downstream, it shoots it down about 80, 90 miles an hour. And you get, well, this was from our insurance company. That little white area, which means catastrophic, that was over Wiley. This is what you get. Anything from 4 to 6 inches wide, coming down at 90 miles an hour. I had some prettier pictures and a video, but it took too long. Texas hail events in the spring of 2006. This is the chart. Over there, the far right, 3.5 inches was the average size of the hail in Wiley, Texas. And I like this statistic. There were 178 hail reports. In April 2016, 86 of them happened on April 11th. So we were having a lot of fun in North Texas. Impact to the school, obviously, the insurance adjuster stuck around a little bit longer. We now had impact to all 20 of our campuses. Our superintendent and administrators, we had to close. We had to close for at least a day just to assess the damage, check on our families, do whatever we can to regroup, but we did make the decision to open school the Wednesday after the storm. Took care of the immediate damages, removing broken windows, wet ceiling tiles, pulling up carpet, pulling out drywall, demolition some of the walls and code base. We had to remediate, obviously. We outsourced the large jobs, but we were doing a lot of vacuuming, cleaning up water, mopping up water. We also had to start implementing patching and putting in temporary roofs so we could get back to school. Because believe it or not, it didn't stop raining in Texas until June 1st. It's like the spigots were turned off. So every day you come in, it rained. There would be a leak in this room. There'd be a leak in that room. You're moving kids around within the buildings just to try to keep them dry and safe. We also had a white fleet that was damaged, along with our buses. So windshields and doors, we had to get those quickly fixed and up and operational. They weren't pretty, but they worked. And then the insurance adjusters decided just to tear up their first report and start all over again. We were talking, there was no sense in trying to separate one hail damage from the other. It was just ridiculous. And there, I'll just show you some fun pictures. This was a junior high backside, the ethos. All of those marks are hail impacts. This is one of our rooftops. This particular roof had about 500 penetrations. Oh, and you see a little bit of the roof, the caps. This is kind of demonstrating 3-inch by 3-inch deep impact through the roofs. And some of our some of our ventilation systems, this is a campus, an elementary campus, and if in the wake of a storm, you have to look for a blessing. This didn't happen during school hours, which would have been just absolutely terrifying for an elementary campus. This is the cafeteria, and we actually had ceiling tiles that collapsed in the middle of the cafeteria. And through on our windows. So like I said, that was a storm. We had damage to all of our campuses, including our auxiliary buildings, transportation, our administration, our buildings, but we were also doing some other stuff. We were in the middle of a bond construction program, which was on an accelerated pace. We decided to, in analyzing the cost, it was going to be less expensive for the district if you had multiple projects going on at one time, and then that way you can share your contractor base. So we probably on average had about 3 to 4 campuses under some kind of renovation, and we were in the process of building a brand new school when all of this came through. Like I said, my boss walks out the Friday before. I was only in my position 9 months, and so when you think about, we had such a the emotional impact of that whole thing, not just the physical that we were dealing with, but the emotional and psychological pressure of it. Also, the contractors that we had hired, we tried to hire locally. A lot of them sustained damage to their buildings, to their equipment, to their personal homes as well. So we factor in that. We had many employees who were displaced. In fact, you couldn't get a hotel in the area. Some people had to go as far as Waco, which is about an hour and a half south of Dallas, just to get a car rented. People were moving out, not unlike what's happening in Houston and in Florida and Puerto Rico. You just had to move away for a while. It did upset some of our regular district maintenance work and our preventative maintenance work. We had to reevaluate that. Likewise, we had to really take a look at how our schools were being used. We are a community organization. We really support our communities and provide space to churches, to organizations, to lease. So we really had to step back from that and say, hey, you know, we need to close for a while and not do this so we can take care of our family. So we were able to minimize our risks and energy usage because we still didn't know what the damage was to all of the envelopes, our building envelopes. Well, we knew what our roofs looked like. We sure knew what our HVAC systems looked like. So All this kind of swirled together to compound our little hail issue. Oh, I'm going to introduce Jennifer Duplessis, our executive director. She finally showed up about 6 weeks after this happened. No, I'm kidding. No, she actually had an interview the day this happened. And so it got kind of postponed. So we're thrilled to have her, but she was really, her experience in maintenance and operation and energy management really kind of guided us through the last step of this case study. You know, take that. It's that one right there, the right one.
Okay. All right. So where was I when all this happened? My mother would let you know I'm late for everything. So in true form, I was late for the storm. I actually woke up on the morning of April 11th thinking I was heading to an interview. I was the director of maintenance and operations for Arlington ISD, and I had applied for the position of executive director in Wiley. So I got up and I took a shower and I got ready. And I was at a stoplight, and a friend of mine called and said, "You still have your interview today?" I said, "I guess. Why?" "You might want to watch the news." So I was about an hour away, and I really had no idea what had happened. So I called immediately and said, "You know, I understand there's a pretty serious situation here. Is there anything I can do to help? Let me know what we need to do." So obviously my interview was slightly delayed because they were closed for one day. We're extraordinarily fortunate in Wiley ISD that Marcia was there and really held the fort down for what was a very panicked situation, as you can imagine, when there's no facilities leadership in place in a disaster such as that, and you have a new associate superintendent over the facilities area with no knowledge or background. A lot of that responsibility for determining what the next steps were from a facilities standpoint fell to Marcia, who'd been working in facilities for 9 months. And she did an absolutely amazing job. But one of the things that really set apart the district, I think, in the response to this was that the administration made a quick decision in an attempt to provide the environment that the community needed to move forward from this experience. Our superintendent is a visionary, and he said, "We're going to be closed just one day. That's it. So go do whatever you have to do. Kids are coming back tomorrow," because their homes are wrecked. Everything in the community is in an uproar. They need a safe place to be, and frankly, their parents need a safe place for them to be to return to some sense of normality so they can rebuild their own homes and they can figure out what they're going to do. And it's actually quite amazing that so many personnel, from literally the superintendent down to every single custodian, were on site, cleaning up, moving things, making things happen. So it was really quite inspirational to see as an outsider. But then when I got there, of course, we were lucky in some ways in this storm. One was in the fact that there really were no power outages of any significant period of time. So from the standpoint of trying to get the facility back up and running, lighting was available, ventilation was in place. There was a lot of moisture, obviously, that had to continue to be dealt with, really for months. I don't think any of us slept for several months. Every time it rained, you just cringed and got in your truck and headed in for what was to be. But we did not have extensive power outages, and the network was maintained. So from a communication standpoint, we were able to manage that. And it really showed us the community of other schools in our area. A lot of them offered to help. We ended up sharing buses and things like that with some local school districts. Extracurricular activities were kind of the last thing to come back. So Marcia, in addition to her duties with energy management, also manages facility usage. So managing when we could bring those extracurricular activities that were really important to the community back online in a safe manner kind of had to be done on a case-by-case basis depending on the state of that particular facility. So what we had to do next, so I showed up in May, and prioritizing the projects was absolutely essential to our response. Obviously, we were in the midst of negotiating a significant insurance claim that was settled for $60 million. So it was a significant amount of repairs that needed to take place. It was a significant negotiation. So I have to hand it to our assistant superintendent of finance because she had to manage with a significant void in knowledge of facilities. What do we really need to get the insurance company to pay for? What partial payments should we accept? What are our emergency procurement methods? There was a lot of learning that had to take place, but fortunately, we were able to get a lot of work done over the summer. We attempted to accelerate that as much as we could. However, there was no way that between May and August, the end of August when the students came back, that everything was going to be done. When you're talking about 20 campuses, every single rooftop unit and every single roof was replaced. Typically in school districts, we attempt to isolate our construction to the summer months. Obviously, that wasn't a possibility. So we had to really start looking at what was the most imperative work to get done during the summer prior to students coming back. So in addition to the insurance claim, as Marcia mentioned, we had a $94.2 million bond. No pressure, but one of those buildings was George W. Bush Elementary School. The president's coming. Oh, great. Okay, so we have to negotiate this large insurance claim, and I'm building an elementary school for which the president's showing up. So I have to have this building ready to go. I will say our general contractor did an amazing job, posted placards all over the campus saying, think July 1st. You know, everywhere we went, there was a sign that said, think July 1st. And their message was, don't think August 1st, don't think August 15th. You better start thinking July 1st, which is huge. So they did an amazing job of completing the bond work in addition to negotiating some builder's risk issues. I don't know if any of y'all have ever had a construction project in process. When you receive some type of storm damage, there's the issue of builder's risk on some of those interim projects. So that had to be handled, as well as the special projects. That's kind of a fun thing when you come into your position and you find out supposedly what the person before you promised everybody, right? So there were a lot of, hey, but I was told that I was going to get this built this summer, and I was told, you know, by so-and-so. And we actually, our executive director as well as our assistant director left during that period of time. So basically we had to say, look, all special projects, unless they're absolutely critical to starting school, they're just not going to happen right now. We really have to focus on major systems, and we'll get back to those, and we did within a year. The capital planning was another part of that. One of the things I wanted to be sure of is that we didn't make mistakes in the roofing and mechanical selections that we made. Were we in a hurry to replace this equipment? Absolutely. But I'm a little bit of an MEP design nerd. And I really don't want to go in and slap in the DX unit that's been sitting on the shelf for 4 years that nobody else wanted. I don't want that either, because in 2 years it's going to be worthless to me, and it's going to be a bad investment on the part of the school district. So we did some planning and scheduling based on that. In the midst of all this, an interest that Marcia and I had was in building a green team. The energy program itself was very, very new at that time. So our goal was to create really some campus-based initiatives and green initiatives, but how do you do that in the middle of all this other that's going on? Well, first we started to take an approach of looking at the projects that we had in front of us. So we got some small lighting monies from the insurance claim, so we did a lot of LED site lighting. People loved it from the standpoint of, if you can imagine, at this point in time, people really had their security shaken. And, you know, psychologically, it helped a lot to see their campuses lit up and the outside looking fairly well taken care of. There were still broken windows in the corner back there. You can't really see them. But at least from the standpoint of getting some energy savings and providing for security, that was very beneficial. This is our fabulous football stadium. You might have heard that football is kind of big in Texas. I grew up on the East Coast, so I'm still getting used to it. But this is the first K-12 application in a football stadium of LED lighting in the state of Texas. It was the very first one done. So this was one of those projects that we had X amount of dollars to address the lighting at that stadium to replace it due to hail damage. It wasn't anywhere near what it costs to do the LED. So we partnered with several vendors and asked, looked at some designs at some private schools and universities that had ventured out into LED for stadium lighting. And we were able to invest just a little more money at a reasonable payback that, frankly, probably without the hail damage claim, we might not have been able to implement. So sometimes there are opportunities that arise from events such as this. So we were super excited about it. Here's a funny story with this one. So we didn't have any directional lighting on the stands. So what's the great thing about LED lighting? What do you reduce with LED lighting compared to, you reduce, right? You reduce heat. You also reduce bleed over. It's more directional. So when we put these really nice LED lights, and they were very directional on the field, and we didn't have light loss in the periphery, the bleachers weren't lit up anymore. So if you ever look at LED lighting on a stadium, you might look and see we never had bleacher lights, but we had enough bleed over from the stadium. So we go to the first game and people are like, I can't see to get to my seat. And you look down from the press box and all you can see is little bitty iPhones everywhere in the darkness. So we did go back and add a few extra heads on each pole with some directional lighting towards the bleacher seating. So we did learn some things, but it looked phenomenal when it was done. We had to look at our roofing applications. I've never done light weak concrete overlay. I wasn't really excited about it, to be honest. But as we looked at our roof type options, this was the best way to get our roofing done while students were in school at a reasonable cost. So this is the system. We visited another school district that had used this system. We looked at the life cycle of it and what the cost difference was, not only first cost, but life cycle cost, and we opted to go with this system for the majority of the re-roofs that we did. I will say it was much less disruptive. However, we sure did have fire trucks roll a couple of times because of the odor. You know, you get that one guy who didn't listen about using the torch next to the outside air intake. So we did have a few exciting moments. But for the most part, our campuses kind of understood the challenges that we were facing to get this done, and we really did work hard to do it with as least interruption as we could. So there are some pictures of the light weak concrete roof overlay that we did, as well as some of the replacement of the DX units. We didn't have a lot of chilled water in Wiley. The district I came from was proliferated with it, so we didn't have as many systems of that nature that had to be replaced, but this is one of them that we did replace. When you get an insurance proceed claim, it's typically going to reimburse you to replace like for like. It doesn't give you the options to adjust for updated. They may give you a code adjustment. We did get a code adjustment, but it still may not be what you would select. So on those cases where it may not have been, okay, I can take this chiller and I can upgrade the efficiency to a higher level, and accomplish that, it still may not be designed the way I would prefer for it to be designed. So in this case, this is Birmingham Elementary. We did a chiller replacement, and we contacted our local utility, and we worked with them to get an incentive so that we could replace it the way that we wanted to and the way that we knew was going to be most efficient. So they partnered with us and helped us with some incentives. And of course, for them, it was really nice bragging rights to say they helped, you know, this district that everybody knows is facing substantial damage, to make some good decisions. Shiny new rooftop units. I keep telling my HVAC techs are spoiled rotten right now. So one of the things that we tried to do in the midst of all this was a reboot. Bless Marcia's heart, she had started as the facilities manager with the focus of organizing, coordinating facility usage, as well as really starting an energy management program. Since you saw the population increase in Wiley over time, it's significant. So really, she was starting from scratch with an energy management program to put those pieces together in a concerted effort for us to be good environmental stewards. However, she was waylaid quite a bit in those efforts in the early months. So one of my goals was to reposition us to where we can. How quickly can we reassess what we're doing? Can I get things moving in the right direction for our hail insurance, our bond, and everything else so that we can focus on what the intent was with our energy management program? So about a year before, Marcia had worked with a vendor to do a behavioral module focused on an energy challenge, and they had reduced energy consumption by 5% during the week of the challenge. We decided that we really wanted to do a green team on our own. There are a lot of different programs out there that you can choose from. When I took a look at this particular behavioral module, I asked several times from the vendor, I need to see the results of that program. They really like to set up meetings, but they wouldn't show me the numbers very easily. So I wasn't very impressed by that. I also looked at the behavioral approach that they were taking, and basically it was a PR campaign with posters and some neat stuff. And I thought, that's really cool, but I can do that. I don't necessarily, and I'm absolutely not against partnering, but when I partner, I want to do it with somebody who's bringing something to my organization that we can't do ourselves. And there are partners out there that will do that, but this just wasn't the one. So Marcia went about creating a green team and really building some support for these initiatives in the midst of everything else that was happening. So she got a representative from each campus to become the green team representative and really carry the message. Because as much as I love education, and has been my client base my entire career, I've only ever taught higher ed. I don't know what to do with those little things in the classroom. I have 3 of them at home, and I still don't know what to do with them. But what happens on a campus on a day-to-day basis, I won't understand because I'm not there. I don't do it. I can observe it as much as I want. But somebody on that campus who's there every day will understand the culture and the flow and the behaviors and how best to communicate what we're trying to do. They'll also tell me when I'm off base. If we come up with what seems like a really awesome plan but is absolutely ridiculous in the life of a campus, if you have somebody on board with you that can tell you that, that's great. So they went about reapproaching the Green Week Challenge in-house, and in April of 2017 conducted a similar competition using our district resources and district ideas, and they saved 12%. So it was pretty substantially showed us that if we can adopt the same approach, then we can kind of do that ourselves at times. In 2017, we also really, when we were meeting with the green team, a large part of their concern was recycling and waste. And we all know in energy usage, nobody sees it leaking out of the building. When you walk by a building or drive by a building and it's wasting energy, there's no water, there's no sprinkler head flowing into the road, there's no big pile of waste that you can see. But what was very visible to our staff was recycling and the fact that we were wasting and we really didn't have a robust recycling program. So we got them on board with the Green Team Challenge and then really started plugging away at something that was of great interest to them, which was single stream recycling. So we were able to implement that in the last month. So we're really excited about it. This is a picture of Marcia and her fabulous green team. She meets together with them once every month or two, and they come up with their plans and implement them. And so, like, you know, departments get left out a lot of times too, and you'll see the lady over here in the pink scarf is from transportation, so we make sure that we get a representative from every group that can really help us make sure our initiatives make sense. So really, we tried to mimic what they call the Wiley Way, which is our organization's mission and values. We try to be innovative and use creative solutions. We're looking at partnering with other groups on some other initiatives to make them even more valuable. And while it was difficult to get through this period of time, when I look back over the last year and a half, the biggest success I can see in my mind, and I wish I had put a picture of it in here, was a picture of Dr. Maricela Helm, who's the principal of George W. Bush Elementary. And it's a picture of her and her son standing next to the president the day that we had our opening ceremony for that facility. And the fact that no matter what it took to get through that period of time, everybody kind of pitched in and made it very successful. The scope of work obviously spanned a significant amount of our district as well as local area homes and businesses. And at the end of the day, our goal was to meet the goals of the leadership team, which was to keep us going, keep the construction and renovation functioning, don't let it slip behind schedule-wise, and our own goals, which were more related to energy management. But if we had not met the goals of the leadership team to complete construction on time, to make sure that building was open and it was clean and we were ready, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to continue to work on the energy efficiency goals that we have in place. So that is all I have. You have any questions?